Hannibal's strategic plan in the Second Punic War. The Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, remains one of the most famous military conflicts in ancient history, largely due to the bold and innovative strategies employed by Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general. Hannibal's approach to the war was unique and audacious, focusing on weakening Rome from within by creating unrest in its territories and striking fear into the heart of the Roman Republic. Below is a breakdown of his key strategic elements during the Second Punic War. 1. Invasion of Italy through the Alps. Hannibal's most famous and daring maneuver was his decision to invade Italy by crossing the Alps, an unprecedented and risky strategy at the time. The standard military practice would have been to engage Rome in Spain or to defend Carthaginian territories in North Africa. However, Hannibal knew that fighting Rome on Roman soil would give him a psychological and strategic advantage. Rationale behind the invasion. By crossing the Alps and attacking Rome from the north, Hannibal aimed to surprise the Romans, who were not expecting an invasion from such a direction. Hannibal believed that if he could defeat Roman armies on their home territory, he could break the alliances Rome had with other Italian city-states, leading to a collapse of Roman control over Italy. The journey. Hannibal led an army of about 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and approximately 37 war elephants from Spain across southern Gaul and then over the Alps into northern Italy. The march through the Alps was grueling, with Hannibal losing nearly half of his army due to harsh weather, difficult terrain, and attacks from hostile tribes. However, the survivors were seasoned and highly motivated troops. Strategic success. Despite the losses, Hannibal's successful arrival in Italy shocked the Romans. His presence in the Italian peninsula put Rome on the defensive and forced them to fight Hannibal on their own soil, far from reinforcements and with their local allies wavering in their loyalty. 2. Psychological warfare and diplomacy. Hannibal understood that military victories alone would not be enough to defeat Rome. He needed to undermine Rome's power by fracturing its alliances with other Italian city-states and peoples, many of whom were only loosely tied to the Republic. Winning allies in Italy. Hannibal hoped that by invading Italy and showing that the Roman legions could be defeated in battle, he could persuade some of Rome's allies to join him. Many of these allies, such as the Samnites and the Etruscans, had long-standing grievances against Roman domination. Hannibal's strategy was to exploit these grievances and present himself as a liberator. Psychological impact on Rome. The very presence of Hannibal in Italy for over a decade instilled fear in the Roman populace and leadership. Roman citizens had never experienced an invasion on such a scale, and the sheer audacity of Hannibal's campaign made them question their own security. Scorched earth tactics. While marching through Italy, Hannibal's forces ravaged the countryside, depriving Roman armies of food and supplies. These tactics were intended to not only weaken Rome's military logistics, but also to force the Senate to negotiate a peace settlement. 3. Tactical genius on the battlefield. Hannibal's brilliance as a battlefield commander is best exemplified by several key battles during the Second Punic War. His ability to read the battlefield, adapt to different situations, and use deception was unmatched in the ancient world. The Battle of the Trebia, 218 BCE. The plan. In his first major battle in Italy, Hannibal lured the Roman army under Tiberius Sempronius Longus into a trap near the Trebia River. Hannibal sent his Numidian cavalry to provoke the Romans into a premature attack. As the Romans pursued the cavalry across the freezing river, Hannibal's hidden troops ambushed them from the flanks. Outcome. Hannibal's forces, well-rested and strategically positioned, decimated the exhausted Roman legions. This victory boosted the morale of Hannibal's troops and demonstrated his mastery of ambush tactics. The Battle of Lake Trasimene, 217 BCE. The plan. Hannibal executed one of the largest ambushes in military history at Lake Trasimene. Knowing the terrain well, Hannibal positioned his troops in a narrow pass near the lake, hiding them in the surrounding hills. As the Roman army, under Gaius Flaminius, marched through the pass, Hannibal's forces attacked from all sides. Outcome. The Roman army was caught completely off guard and was crushed, with thousands killed or captured. This battle is a testament to Hannibal's understanding of terrain and his ability to manipulate Roman commanders into unfavorable positions. The Battle of Cannae, 216 BCE. The plan. The Battle of Cannae is often considered Hannibal's masterpiece and one of the greatest tactical victories in history. Facing a Roman army that outnumbered his forces nearly 2-1, Hannibal used a double envelopment maneuver. He placed his weakest troops in the center, allowing the Roman legions to push forward while his stronger troops held the flanks. As the Romans advanced, Hannibal's cavalry and infantry encircled them. Outcome. The Romans were completely surrounded and annihilated. Around 50,000 to 70,000 Roman soldiers were killed in a single day, making Cannae one of the deadliest battles of the ancient world. The victory at Cannae was a psychological blow to Rome, and it sent shockwaves throughout the Republic. 4. Avoiding direct siege of Rome. Despite his battlefield successes, Hannibal never directly attacked the city of Rome. This decision has been the subject of debate for centuries, but it was likely due to several key factors. Lack of siege equipment. Hannibal's army, which had crossed the Alps and fought for years in Italy, lacked the necessary siege engines to breach the walls of Rome, which were heavily fortified. Insufficient manpower. After the long and costly campaign in Italy, Hannibal did not have enough soldiers to besiege and conquer Rome. A siege of the city would have required a sustained effort, and Hannibal's forces were constantly depleted due to casualties and the need for garrisoning captured cities. Strategic patience. Hannibal hoped that by continuing to defeat Roman armies in the field, the Roman Senate would eventually be forced to negotiate peace. He also believed that more Italian allies would defect to his side, giving him the strength needed to confront Rome directly. However, this support never materialized on the scale he had hoped. 5. The long campaign in Italy and the War of Attrition. For over a decade, Hannibal remained in Italy, continuing to harass Roman forces and ravage the countryside. His strategy was to wear down Rome through attrition, forcing them to exhaust their resources and will to fight. This approach, however, had mixed results. Fabius Maximus and the Fabian strategy. Rome, under the leadership of Quintus Fabius Maximus, adopted a new strategy to deal with Hannibal. Known as the Fabian strategy, it involved avoiding direct confrontations with Hannibal and instead focusing on harassing his supply lines, cutting off his reinforcements, and wearing down his army over time. This approach frustrated Hannibal's attempts to deliver a decisive blow to Rome. Lack of reinforcements from Carthage. One of Hannibal's major challenges was the lack of substantial support from Carthage. The Carthaginian government was either unwilling or unable to send the necessary reinforcements and supplies to Hannibal in Italy, leaving him to fight a long, grueling war with dwindling resources. 6. The shift of the war to North Africa. As the war dragged on in Italy, Rome decided to take the fight to Carthage itself. The Roman general Scipio Africanus launched a successful invasion of North Africa, forcing Hannibal to return home to defend his city. The two generals met at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, where Scipio, having learned from Hannibal's tactics, defeated him decisively. This battle marked the end of the Second Punic War and Carthage's final defeat. Conclusion: Hannibal's strategic brilliance. Hannibal's strategy in the Second Punic War was marked by boldness, innovation, and tactical genius. His ability to outmaneuver Roman commanders and use the terrain to his advantage led to some of the most stunning victories in military history. However, his long-term strategic goal of breaking Rome's alliances and defeating the Republic from within ultimately failed due to the resilience of the Roman state, the strategic patience of leaders like Fabius Maximus, and the lack of substantial support from Carthage. Despite his defeat, Hannibal remains one of the most admired and studied military commanders in history, with his strategies influencing warfare for centuries. Despite his many successes on the battlefield, Hannibal's long-term strategy in the Second Punic War did not ultimately achieve its main goal, the destruction of Roman dominance. Several factors contributed to this failure, including the unyielding resilience of Rome, the cautious Fabian strategy employed by Rome's leadership, and the lack of sustained support from Carthage itself. While Hannibal's genius was undeniable, the political and military realities of his time ultimately undermined his efforts. The Roman counterattack, Scipio Africanus, and the invasion of North Africa. While Hannibal was occupied in Italy, Rome began to shift its focus on weakening Carthage's resources elsewhere, especially in Iberia, modern-day Spain, and North Africa. This strategic pivot proved crucial in turning the tide of the war. Scipio Africanus' rise. One of the key figures who would eventually confront Hannibal was Scipio Africanus, a young and ambitious Roman general who had studied Hannibal's tactics closely. Scipio knew that continuing to